confirm if I'm audible. Uh, so it was starting late. There was something that I had to cover up with. So just confirm if I'm audible.
Yeah, you're audible.
And hopefully you can see us.
Yeah.
Okay, so as you, as I was saying, that even did it previous day that I'd create a copy for the past day and would rename it to the current day and start coding from there. So the same thing is done like from day one to as day two. Right. Starting here, we'll be doing changes in the code. Let's see what we have done. And if you have gone through the code or if you uh, remember the past day that we are doing, we're like having the endpoints, then I try change the endpoints of whatever, however, in a RESTful format. The APIs would be in. Then we talked about how I can standardize the format for interacting with the APIs, the JSON and stuff. Then we added SQL alchemy, get data, query data, transact data in between, and those kind of stuff. Then I did something as I broke down like shifted some of app.py parts into different files like config.py, models.py, and dbinit.py. Right. Starting here, and today we will be covering this. The next thing would be I have somehow showed that how the CRUD APIs may look. Okay. Next thing would be how to protect the APIs, right? At least for the yeah, and for that I would be needing class security. Like, as I said, the first that I will be using class security, and from class security I will be using the token-based authentication, right? So for that I just need to install class security. I need that library, and with this, I could like implement it. But before I proceed for that, I just need to, as I'm using a virtual environment, so I would just maintain the requirements for TST. Whenever any, uh, whenever I add a new library, and I'm aware that I will be using that. And here I will be adding that. How would I add that? Or what other components that are needed? So for Flash security to work, it needs what? I need to have models, have the database tables, and we have to connect to it. Like we have to pass it to the security instance that yes, you would be using the tables and stuff. Right. I hope you are getting my idea what am I talking about.
Not quite, Anchit. Can you just repeat that?
Okay. So I'm saying that whenever Flash security, I'll be initializing Flash security, right? Similar to line 8. That is, I'm initializing Flash SQL Alchemy. Over that time, I need to specify that here's like okay, we need to store the details. We need to store the details about the user and stuff. For that, we'll be dedicating some of the user, like some of the tables for Flash security. Right? And okay,
Okay, you'll be
okay. Let me
specifying like
let
which particular table you'll be storing the
yeah,
data
kind
into.
of, kind of,
Okay,
kind of. Yeah. Okay. Let me do one thing. Let me not rather do or say anything more. Rather go to models and let me do it by do it. So it would be good to go. So I got the library, and in models.py, I'd be creating few new tables, right? With few new like models, but basically you're getting like I will be back propagating the tables into a database, right? So yeah,
right.
last from the Flash security library, I need three things: user mixing, role mixing, and SQL alchemy user data store. User data key methods. Okay. Next thing, let these two classes be there. That is test and test one. In here, I'm saying that I need three more classes. It starts with class control class user.
So is it like internal tables that like just for our reference? So where we'll store each role and each users, like what kind of access they have.
Yeah, not internet tables, but as for the other tables, it's the same. And I will be going through that. Give
Okay.
me one. Yes. I wrote down three classes, right? Named it as role user and role user. Like role as a separate, user as a separate table. There is another table that goes with the name user role. So three tables also. Now I need those three. So how it goes? So consider the scenario. What are the details that you want to save in terms of like what are the like if you are on a high level, like if you think from a higher level, how is it going to be? So it's like you want to save the details about the user, be it the user credentials, like email ID, password, and stuff. Okay. We'd be saving that. Then next thing, you want to implement RBAC, right? Role-based access control. As for the problem statements, you have to do that. So it's like how Flash security works is that whatever details about the user, be it the user credentials or any other detail that you want to store, you will be going to store it in this user table, right? Now here comes the role table. What is the role table? Role table will be having the least amount of data and the least transaction within that table. That is because it will be only be having the declared roles that you will be having in your app. For example, if you are going through the problem statement or whatever the problem statement says, there are two roles, right? So those two roles will be saved in the role table, and yeah, I can confirm that the role table will be only and only be having two rows, or whatever number of rows that you will be having for your app, that n number of rows, the same number of rows will be there in this role table. The role table will only and only be storing the declared roles for your app, right? Nothing else. So it's like the role table is having the declared roles, user table is having the user credentials and any other details that a user would have. Okay. And thirdly, consider this. Those two are separate, right? Roles are there, a user is there, but until and unless you assign a role to a specific user, it's like a normal user. That user, if like you cannot, if you are implementing RBAC, you cannot have a user without a role, right? You at least have to have a user with a role. Else, that should be a condition that if any user is not having a role, they cannot log into your app. That should be a condition, right? Or else, if you like it is like violating the RBAC idea, right? So that is not possible. So just to make that happen, that yes, a user is getting a role, we will be using this user role table. So it's an association table in between the role table and the user table. So we'll be taking out the, it's like uh, see, it's like yeah, it's like assigning a user with a role, okay, with a or one or many roles. Okay, it's something like if I go through the columns for the role table, it's yeah, yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So if I'm getting this right, role table will basically have administrate, admin, and user. Those are the only two rows we'll have, right?
Yes,
And then
yes,
user will have something like user ID, username, and all those details. And then user
correct.
role would probably have like user ID, and it'll say if it's an admin or a user. And it's
True.
kind of like joining between the user and user role, which will
Mm-hmm.
give you like a reference for each user and what kind of role they have. And then you connect
Yes,
that with like the actual role table, admin or user.
that is
Okay.
what I was
Okay.
trying to say. Yeah.
Okay.
The ID plus the column sets a primary key and name blue. Okay. Let me just go ahead and write the columns down and I will pass through it once. Okay. So yes, you can go through the flash security documentation, but uh, else what you can see is that I wrote down the tables, right? And even these are not the default tables, but that it's an uh, smaller version, or yeah, it's a like it's a lighter version for the default tables. So it's like The role table, I just wrote three columns. One is a primary key, name and description. In the user table, I am having 4, 5, 9, 9, 12 columns. Okay. And in the role user table, what am I having? I am having three columns. As you are saying, yes, I would be like there would be a primary key at all the tables, so that's no thing. But apart from that, I am having the user ID as a foreign key and the role ID as a foreign key, and giving it a like like attaching both user with a role. Okay. Now here's the thing: it can be one user can have one role or multiple roles. If it is having a single role, then there's a single entry. Else, n number of roles and number of entries, right? So it's again, it's a choice how you want to do it. If you are going ahead with yes, a single user will be having a single role, then it's fine. That is up to you how you prefer to do it. Shouldn't role table have role ID as the primary key? Uh, Role table have role ID as the primary key. Role ID. No, here's the primary key, and this is the primary. And
So
if you are
that
talking about
ID
that,
is not the user ID, right? It's probably like the role ID in the user role table. I mean the ID column in the role table, user role table. Sorry, you have
no,
the
come
you.
on,
If I'm like what I'm a bit confused on is the user role
uh-huh.
table. It has this role
Okay,
ID column, right? And you
right.
are ideally whenever you are like pulling the detail, probably linking it with the role. So the ID here,
Role table.
technically, it's role ID, right? In role table. So let's say
In role
role
table,
ID,
it's the ID column. This is
right?
the
It's that
column in question.
it's same as role ID, right? Like the values will be same
Yes,
as
yes,
role
it's
ID.
same. It's
Okay,
same. It's same.
okay, okay.
But role
Yeah,
ID over here is a foreign key. Okay, you
yeah,
can see
that
it.
I
You can see it.
understood.
Like,
It's just I was
no.
confusing it with user ID and role ID. Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. So let me do something like as I can give out some wherever I'm writing an hash after a column. Consider those columns to be default, and those cannot be skipped. Okay, and this is a relationship, so you cannot skip that. So from the tables, this are the columns that you are really going to need. So user role, like you cannot touch that. Okay. In role table, you just need a primary key and a name. You're good to go. In user table, it's like you just need a primary key, email ID, password. Okay. And you are good to go. Apart from that, there are three more columns. I'm coming to that in a moment. But what am I trying to say is that the role table is having a name and description for each role. Again, I can skip the description, it can be empty, no worries. I just need a name for a role. Like if I am declaring an admin role, I can name it anything. I just need to know that how it is working and what name is allowed for what. Uh, that I can associate with a role. Okay, that is fine. That will be good to go. Next thing would be I talked about the user role table, and the third thing is the user table. Okay, I segmented it out. If you could see, I segmented it out. The first four columns. Consider this. ID is again a primary key auto implementation is there, so I do not need to do a thing. Okay. Apart from that, there are three more columns. That is email ID, password, username. I'm saying that email ID and password are needed. You cannot skip those. But apart from that, there is username. Again, you can or cannot skip those. Is a question that you will be like that. I will be uh, putting in into a gray area. That is because again, whatever authentication method that you are choosing for, that depends. Okay. Then I'm not going into this, but yeah, as of now, I need user. email and password. Okay, from the user table that I need. Okay, that depends, but for this case, I need that. I cannot skip that. Okay. Username, I can skip. That is okay. Apart from that, there are five more columns. I'm coming to that in a moment. But in here, you can see there are two more columns. One is FS identifier, another one is active. Okay, and there is a role relationship so that I can declare out a user is having a role, right? Using a secondary table or backref and stuff. But apart from that, what am I saying is there is FS unifier and active. So FS unifier is again a ID for each user. It will be unique for each user, and I do not have to handle it. Okay, so it's like from the user table. I just need like the user just needs to whenever the user is getting created, the user just needs to provide two things. One is email ID and the password. Okay. Apart from that, this n number of rows, whatever number of rows, 5, 2, 7, 8 rows will be maintained by Flash security. I do not need to do a thing. Okay. How will I be using it? I'm going for it in a moment, but consider this. FS Unifier is an ID that is generated by Flash Security, maintained by Flash Security, and will be used by Flash Security. You do not need to do a thing. Okay, that is Flash Security Unifier. Okay. Next thing is the active column. It's a, if you see, it's a Boolean thing, so either it's a binary, like either it should be true or it could be false. So it's like by default for all user Flash security sets the active column or active attribute for a user to be true. And how will you be using it is to have a check. Consider this. You want to flag a user. How can you do it? Do you want to go ahead and delete the user from the database? No, right? That could be a choice, but that won't be a wise choice to make. Now, over there, this active column comes to play. That is that is uh, you just set it to false and the user won't be able to access your app. Okay, so you won't be losing down the user or the user won't be losing their credential and stuff or details, but it will be adding a restriction for that user. Okay? So next thing is this five columns, that is login count, last login at, current login at, login IP, and the last login IP and current login IP. Those five columns. Those five columns are to track a user. Okay, how the user is interacting with our app. How many times does he logs in? What was the last login time? Current login time. 26 and 27 are the times, and 28 and 29 are the last login IPs. Last login and current login IPs. Okay. Again, do not need to do a thing. Flash security will be updating and handling this, but we'll be using it whenever we are going for the backend jobs. Okay. Again, that is how I want to do the backend jobs, but again, you can like do it in your way. And like if you remember from the daily reminder that it was saying that if a user is like check if a user is visiting your app for a specified interval of time, like in the past 24 hours, if the user has visited your app. In that case, if not, then you will be sending the reminder. So I'll be using this. Okay, it just makes my life easier. I could be having a logger file or something, but no, that's a different case. But I can like you can think of it if you have thought of it in that way. But yes, I'd be using this to track the user down. Again, I do not have to do a thing. It will be populated by Flash security. So it's again one more thing, like one more option that I am getting and I'm opting for it. That I do not have to do anything. Like I do not at all. Like not a thing. Again. So currently these three tables are in a normal format. Okay. But there is something more that is in the role table. I just need to pass role maximum. Again, it would be similar to db.model, where db.model is a parent class, acting as a parent class and passing down the uh, methods to this to every class. Right? It's kind of similar to that role mixing and user mixing. And those two are coming from classic here. Apart from that, there is something more, that is SQL Alchemy user data store. Accept that. So the thing is that if you see currently I'm having five tables, right? And how am I transacting data in between each table? Like, saying we have mad one oops. What are we doing? We will be using Flask SQL Alchemy to send data, query data, and whatever that is done with this data. Right? Now I'm saying that it's a direct way to go through, right? But at least for this three tables, that is role table, user table, and role user table. Again, please do not put me theoretically correct. Just saying it just to well, display out or try to explain what my idea is, right? Please do not put on that. So I'm saying that instead of going for it directly, like whenever I get this idea, I'm doing a post request. What am I doing? Getting the data from the client. The backend is processing it out, setting it in a correct format, staging it to the table, making the change to the database, saving the database. Right now, it's a direct way to go through. It's like you are going from. Consider this example: you are going from Kolkata to Chennai. You can take a direct flight and go to Chennai, but it is also possible that you just take a layover. It would be cheaper. Like again, in terms of monetary, it would be cheaper for you. Okay. So what am I saying? If you go to from Kolkata to Trivandrum and from Trivandrum to Chennai, that is one more way to go. You can like like from a higher level view, you are reaching Chennai, but in between you are going to Trivandrum and then going to Chennai. That doesn't make a difference. If I ask you that yes, are you in Chennai? You'd say that yes, I am in Chennai. So it is something of that sort where the data will be reaching to the database file. Just that with a uh, with a what was it? With a detour. Okay, it's like I won't be using directly the I won't be using the SQL Alchemy directly, but it's like I'll be using this method that I'm getting for Flask security to pass the data to the database tables. Right? Again, I say that database tables that represents this two tables: role table, user table, sorry, three tables, and the role user table. Okay. So interacting most of the interaction will be done through SQL Alchemy user data store method for this three table: role table, user table, and role user table. I'm repeating. Okay. Again, I said most, not all. Whenever there is a need, if that cannot be sufficed by this user data store, then we'll be using SQL Alchemy. That is fine. But at least for most of the part this for these three tables, we'll be using SQL Alchemy user data stores. Okay. So how to do that is declare out a variable, be it anything, and use this method by passing it the DB instance. Okay, that is the SQL Alchemy instance. Then user the user class and the role class. Okay, and that would be three things I have to pass, and it would create me a user data store. Now the thing is that I started off with saying with whenever I am like going for creating the uh, Flask instance or adding the Flask instance into my Flask server, what am I going to do is I will be passing what the app instance, and I said that I will be passing those three tables, right? Now that is done from here. That is from model. I'd be getting user data store, and from the day and like from the library that is class security, I'd be getting the security method. And after DBing it or someplace, I'd be adding the security past the app instance or class instance and user data store. With this, I am done, but there is something more that I need to do in config, that is the secret key. Secret key needs to be there so that it works. It's just it could be anything. I'm just saving it in this format and using it. That doesn't make a huge difference. Restarting it, and you can see that it's working fine. So what I have done till now, added three more new tables, okay, included Flash security into my app, onto my Flash server, and we are good to go as of now. But I need some few newer APIs. Let's. What do I need? I need a register API, login API, logout API. Logout, it depends, and if I need or not. But I need register and login. Let's start off with register. And why am I saying that I need logout? Like it depends if I need logout or not. That I will be discussing within the next 20 or after 30 minutes. Right. So let's create a route. App.route, and it is register. And let's set the method to be post. In here, what I want to do is define register. Now, for register, what do we need? We need some details from the user, right? I told that I would be registering a user until there's what email ID, password the user gives me. So again, that will be like the user will be sharing it in a JSON format. So request.json. If you remember from request.json. Right? Next thing, I'd be getting the email, the password, and the username. And it's like if not email, then I'm returning something. If not password, then again I'm returning something. And for username, it's fine. You can give me an username, you can skip a username, that is okay. No need, no worries. Now, whenever a user is trying to register himself, what check do I need to do? Consider this. If you have gone through my model, like if you have created a transfer, the email ID will always be unique. Okay. And that's a case that you have to. Okay. You cannot skip that part. So if like uh, it's like if not or if uh, again over here I'll be using user data store. Okay. As I said, I am doing an interaction with that table, with the user table. So if user data store dot find user, there's a method find user. Email, like the column name and the email that I got stored in the variable, email variable. I'm checking. So from the user data store, I'm using the method find user to find a user with the email address that I got over here. I would, if a user is found, then I would say user already exits, exits. Like forgetting, I don't know. I can say exits, exit, exist, exist. Okay. So I, and even it's same for the username, right? Right now I'm holding a like I'm stopping myself from completing the register API, but I want to do. I forgot of doing something that's can use. Can I do the register? Like if I write down the register API and if I try to register an user, will it be an wise choice to a correct thing, like correct choice? Have I skipped something? Have I missed something? I told that whenever I was discussing about the tables, I told that, and I just want to know if I could do that. Like if I could register a user after making this API.
I think password is also a constraint, right?
Password can be like I haven't like what am I saying? I haven't completed finishing the register API, but I need to do something more, and it is good to go. But there is something that I forgot. I told that whenever a user is going to register, there should be beforehand there should be a thing that is that I was saying about a role, right? So whenever you are initializing your app for the first time, you should be having the roles declared in the role table. I was saying that there will be rows for each role, right? So it's like, and I said something like, if you are implementing RBAC, then your app cannot be like it cannot be possible that you have a user without a role. It's like, it will be violating your own principles. Right? So that is what I have to do before I do register, and I can do it over here, right? So whenever the app gets started up, I can add the role. But do I need to do that every time my server restarts or server runs? Right? No. I already have a db init.py file. What is this doing? It is like a file that would just go ahead and check if the database is there. If the database is there, yes. All the tables in the database are there as per my model or not. Else it would create, right? The same idea is also implemented, and again, I would be adding here. That is, whenever I'm creating the database, considering it is the initialization of my database or of my app, as in a whole, right? So at that time, I would go ahead and add the rules. So without if I want to implement RPAC, I cannot proceed without a rule, right? Without the roles declared. So for that, I will be using user data store again, and before and only I will create. That is, I'll be using user data store dot find or create role. So it is doing both the checks. Okay, that it is checking if the role is there or not. If not, it would just go ahead and create the role. Okay. So for example, name is admin, one role. Next role is a normal user, regular user, or general user, right? These two statements will create whatever data that I have to store into the database. Now, here's the thing. If I go back to app.py and this in this post method, over here I am with this three lines in question, I am adding a data to my database, right? To a database file, to the database table. Right? What am I doing? Firstly, on line 6, I am creating a like I am formatting the data into the required format for that specific table, okay, so that I can uh, stage it to the database. Next thing on line 107, I am staging the change to the database table. And finally, on line 108, I am committing or I am saving the change that I stage into the table. So it's a three-layer process. Okay, formatting the data, staging the data, and saving the data, and saving the change. Okay, three things. And I'm saying that user data store helps me do that. Okay, but user data store helps me do the first two, that is formatting the data and staging the data. But I need to manually do this. That is db.session.commit to save the changes. Okay, it is formatting the data and staging the data into the database table. That is fine, but I have to manually do db.session.commit. Okay, so here's the thing. Even just for the sake of doing it in a correct format, it would be like define a method. create rules, and let me call it over. So whenever I'm setting my app, I'm calling two methods. That is db.createAll and db and like it checks if the tables and stuff are there or not. And next thing is it will check if the roles are present or not. If not, it will just go ahead and create it. Right now, there is again before I proceed for registered endpoint, I want to do one more thing. If you have gone through the front statement, there is like you have to add your about the admin I'm talking about. You have to add your admin whenever you initialize your app for the first time or initialize your database, right? You cannot have like you cannot have the admin register himself through the register page or somehow some any other way. Again, at least in terms of backend, when you are initializing your app for the first time, you can have multiple other ways to right to add a user. But let's opt for the easier way and the simplest way that I can think of. That is in here in the same file. This file is just to initialize your app or at least just to initialize your database, right? In here, I can add it. After declaring the rules, let me have one more method that is create admin user. Okay. And again, I'd be using the user data store to achieve the same. Again, user data store will be using the same thing in register also. Just that we are supplying out the defaults from. So it's like if not user data store, find user. Again, I'm finding the admin with the email, right? Or else I could have used something like I am having the admin user. Like there would be a single admin user, right? So I can think of it in this way. So the admin role will only be allocated to a single user, right? It won't be allocated to multiple users. So I can query it through the role too. That is, I'm having this role wala call relationship, right? So I can think of it like let's see, user data store. Again, I haven't tried it before. And I just thought of it. Yes, that could be one other option that I can get or that I can do. Okay, let me have a quick check in the mm, documentation, and you guys also see with me. Again, you may say that yes, you could have gone with the idea that you have previously thought of, but I say, why not? Let's find out. It's like, see, how can I search for it? So, what am I saying? I am going to check what methods are within user data stores, right? Go to the Flash security documentation, search for either user data store or you can get the methods in here in APIs. You will get that. Okay. Go to the API segment and look for user data store, data stores, user data stores. Okay. What are the methods that I have? Activate user and stuff, right? Find role, find users, web auth. Uh, Nothing. What am I trying to find? Let's uh, find user with the role. Yes, I cannot do that. Cannot direct. I think I cannot directly write in that solutions. Ending user. You may be able to let me give it a try. Okay. So, I guess I cannot. No. Ah, yeah, that is possible. Yes. Let me have a quick try. Mm, Let's. I won't be getting that. So this condition becomes true. Right? And if I try that, want to see that it's printing creating user, creating admin user. Let's. So what I'm gonna do is Python db underscore init. Indentation error, create rule. Oh, what is that? Line number 60. I didn't call it. Get that back. Mhm. Expression user role located field. Acha. I did something wrong, I guess. Yes, it's a role. Okay, okay, okay. I haven't made the change. Like the database was not there. Like, the tables were not there in the database. I don't, I don't, tables are not. So for that, I will be commenting this. Create all. Create the terminal. Right. So when initializing map to repeating a name. Yes, this is the class. Both independent classes has been. Okay. Let's see. Hmm. I cannot do this. That's sad. But I will find a way out. I want to do that. Anyways, as of now, I'm just querying an user with an email ID admin@abc.com. If there is a admin, then I will be seeing that. Okay. If not user, oh, I didn't add it. Fine. Something happened. Hmm, Let's see what blunder have I made. the what did I do? This having wait, something is going on. Something is going wrong. I'm getting two underscores. Where's the thing? If I remove one, again, I'm doing it right now with a GUI, but for now, I'm just having a check. So, something wrong is happening. Thought of finishing off today. Table. Table. That's one. I have set it to do something like previously. I was going for this format, right? And in general, it may or may not break some of the tips. So what did I do? I just manually set that whenever this table goes with, the name should be this one, the table name, as in the database table, the model. Okay. So now it's working fine. And let me give it a try. I don't know. Not compare the collection for okay. That won't work. This don't work. Let's go ahead with this one as of now. So what am I saying? I'm checking if a user is present with this email address, and that email address is only being dedicated to us, the user that is an admin user. Okay, that is what I am considering. Next thing, if that is not there, so I'm using again the data store. So why am I doing it in this two way? That is because I do not have a like inclusive method that I can do by calling it that single method I can do find or create. Right? So I'm doing create user, and create user needs what? I need email address. I said that there are some unskippable fields, that is email address and password. I need to give out email address and password. So email equals to the same thing, admin at the rate abc.com. In here, I will be passing down the password. Password, that is admin. And with this, the user will be created. Let me call it into a variable, else that thing it was okay. Why am I calling it even a variable? Is to add a role. Okay. See, adding a role could be done in many ways. For example, if I do not call it in that way, so I can do something like roles over here equals to in a list, I just want to pass the role name and it will be done. Okay, that is one way to do. Another way could be, if you have, you should remember, if you have gone through the documentation, you will find there is one method, that is add role to user. There we are. Add role to user. I want to use this. For that, I need the user instance. Next thing is this one, add role to user from user data store. This user data store dot add role to user, and I have to pass the user instance and the name for the role. Else, I can do something like, again, user data store dot find role by the name admin. Okay, anything is possible. Next thing, these are the changes that I am making to the table, right? Until and unless I save it, it won't be okay. It won't be, the change won't be happening. So that is admin user creation. So let's see. Let's do it in this way. And if I restart, rerun dbinit my file, then you can see that in the instance directory, if I go to the database, see the roles were generated and added. Then there is the user table. See, a user was created, email, password, username, and other stuff are empty as of now. But FS anywhere, see the ID was generated by Flash Security, and the active column is set as one, that is true, right? And in role user table, you can see the allocation was made for user ID 1, role ID 1 was allocated, and role 1 is admin. Okay. Hmm. Uh, so with this, I can proceed for register. But there is something, that is, you can see that I kept the password to be a string. Okay. You can go for hash password. I am not going for hash passwords, but it's nothing much. Well, if you go through the if you go through the documentation, you can find the methods you want to call for. Okay. Over here in register, the same idea will be implemented. See, I did the checks. If email, if I can find a user with that email, then it's not a valid email. Then the username, like, because I've kept the username and email to be unique. Okay. Next thing is, I have done that. If I'm not getting password, then I won't be adding the user. Then the next thing is, with a try block, I can do user equals to user data store dot create user, and I'm going to pass the email ID, password, and username. Can you please show the schema view of the database tables? Schema view. Okay. Like the ER diagram or what? Oh, okay. Okay. Schema. The total table. Can I see that? Okay, I have to do. But yeah, you can get get it from the model, but I can show you the ER diagram very quickly. This is the ER diagram as of now. I have kept the, it's like test and test one are separated out. That's why it's showing in this form. The total schema, I cannot show it in one go. That is a thing. I can give it a quick. Here's the role. Yes, test one, test two, user table, and user role table. So So in here, I'm giving out the email ID, password, and username. If username is there, then it will be added, else it will be empty. Next thing is, I want to add the role again. Over here, what you have to user data store dot add role to user, and I am adding a default thing. That is, whenever a user is trying to register himself, he will be allocated the regular user role. Okay, that's a common and fixed that you cannot get any other role. So again, this is a two role app, so that is possible. And finally, register is done, except an error occurred. So let's give it a try. And I will try it from postman. So my app is running on 5,000 and it is slash list. It's a post request. And if you remember from the past day, in body, I have to set it to be raw JSON. And within JSON, what keys do I need to pass is the prominent ones are email and password that I need at all times. So email is, for example, user1 at the data.com. Password be user1. I send it. Let's see. Username already exists. Username already exists. Okay, I have to do something else. Um, that is okay, I guess. Yes, now it is working fine. I can give it a check over here. See, in the user table, the second user was created, right? And in the role user table, the allocation was done. So user ID 2 got role ID 2. Role ID 2 is a normal user role, and user ID 2 is the newer user that I have created just now. Let me try it with another user. I can send. See, user ID 3 was created. If I go to the database file, can have a look that yes, user ID 3 was created and user ID 3 got role ID 2. That is a normal user role. Okay. This will go in that way. This registers. Like, now, after the registration API, what other API do I need? Or what other endpoint do I need? That is login, right? Now here will be a thing. I will write it down. So I got the JSON object, email ID and password is the most needed thing that I would be using. Okay. If not, I'm saying that it's the validations that email is required. If not password, then password is required. Right? So next thing is I'm finding the user with that email. If user is not found, then I would say if not user, then it's 404. It's not registered with us. That I cannot find the email. Right? Next thing is, as I have kept the password to be a string, so I can do something like string match. Okay. If that is the case, then what am I saying? It's very simple. I'm just printing out password matched, login success as of now. Okay, save it and give it a try. I want to see this. Again, I'm passing the email and the password, send, and it says user already exists. Ah, okay, register. I need to set it for login. My bad. But what do they see? See, consider this. I'm passing the email ID to be user2@abc.com and password to be user2. Okay, go back to the API. I got the JSON. So this validation is passed that I am passing the email. Same goes for password. I'm passing the password, so it won't go in that or it won't fall into that. Next thing, it would find me a user because user2@abc.com is there in the table, right? Next thing, so it won't fall in this one. And finally, the password would match again because the password that I have is user2 and the password that I'm passing is user2. Okay, so it would pass. So finally, what would I see is this message that return was successful and this is the user ID, right? Let's see if I can get that. So I already have the server running. If I send a request, you can see, oh my bad, I can go it in raw or preview. It didn't show it from the first go. So this is what I am seeing. Is it a response that I have created? Oh, right. So how it is done. Then there is something more. If I do, see, consider this. In this login endpoint, have I made the method get to be available? No, right? Get is not allowed for this method. So it would give me that something like method not allowed or something, right? But see this. If I change it to get and do a send request, you can check it in preview. I got something else. That is response is here, like I got a total JSON object. Within that, I have having two keys. One is meta, another one is response, and response is having a CSRF token. Have I done that? No, right? That is coming from Flash security. Now the thing is that Flash security does it. That Flash security provides you with some uh, default endpoints, okay, pre-built endpoints. You do not have to do it. It's same for login, but I do not want to use the default login endpoint. Okay, rather I just want to make my own. You see 5,000 login, you'll see a page over it. See, did I make it? No, right? But it is being supplied from Flash Security. So what I would do is I would change it. Like I can like like I, there is no switch kind of a thing that is like if I toggle it, it would be something down the login wala page or login wala endpoint. So what I have to do is I have to do a quick fix. That is from the security configuration list, I can go and find this. That is security login URL. Again, this is the default thing. That is /login. I'm changing it to some random. Okay, save it. And now if I give it a try, you would see that's it's not working. Now, if I give it a try, it says method not allowed because the default is now changed to this endpoint, and currently /login is this one that I wrote. Okay, and get is not available for that. Now, if I try to do a post request on this, so you'll see that it says login successful user ID 3. That is what I have made. Right? So that is okay. That is good to go for me right now. And what am I saying is I have verified the password. But if you remember, whenever I started it, I said that I have passed. Anyways, I said that I will be using token-based authentication, right? I won't be using session-based authentication. So for that, I need to supply the token, authentication token. How is that possible? After the password verification, it's very simple. In this return statement, there is message user ID. For example, hmm, user ID. Sorry. Mm, mm. Next thing would be the authentication auth token. For example, token. So, this. Next thing is the authentication token. Auth token. How can I do it? Is user dot get auth token. If I call this, it would be adding the authentication token to this key. This would work only and only if you have found the user with this method. That is, you have used user data store to find the user. Right. Now, let's give it a try. If it is working on, I will restart the server and send it. You can see that this is the response that I got back. Message was again a default thing. There is user email, user ID, and user role. Okay. And here's the token that was added. I can use this token in a later stage. Okay. I'm coming to that in 2 minutes. Say, see, what have I done? I have made a register endpoint and a login endpoint. Login endpoint, I am doing the checks and stuff. And after all the validations are done, I'm responding with the authentication token, right? Now, here's the thing. How can I use it? Whenever, consider this or imagine this scenario. You are a client. You came to my backend. Okay, as of now, for really who would be my client? The client would be the front end, right? Eventually, the end user is communicating with the front end, and front end is sending a request to the backend, right? So what backend is doing, backend is, at least for login, backend is generating an token and it is supplying it to the front end, right? Now it's the responsibility for the front end to handle it on behalf of the end user, right? So in terms of backend or how or in what logic the backend is using, as of now, what I have made is that I gave out the token, like, speaking from the point of view of the backend. I generated the token, I gave it to the client. Now, what will I do? As of now, the other endpoints are not protected. So anyone can talk to any endpoint. But I will be protecting those endpoints, most of the endpoints. Only I will be leaving out register and login where a user can access those without logging in. Okay. Apart from that, others should be like that. We, I would be needing the users to log in, then only they can interact with the APIs. For that, I have given them a token. Next thing that I expect is the user to give the backend the authentication token. The backend will verify it and will respond back. Else, it won't respond back. How can that be possible? Is from the Flash security library, there is auth required, and that is a decorator similar to direct app.route. Okay. For example, I'm protecting this query data. How can it be authentic auth required? And in that, you just need to pass the parameter to the token. See, protecting all the endpoints. So it cannot be accessed. How can I check that? Is if I try to this do this query data, and that's a get request. So if I send, it says 401. You must sign in to view this resource. So what is happening? That endpoint is being protected as of now. If I uncomment, like if I comment this, then you can see it would be going ahead and seeing that. Like it would be responding back. But yes, it didn't find any data, so it is responding that no data was found. But if I uncomment it. So it's a protected endpoint right now. And what it is responding that it should like should log in and log in terms of not in overall, but what I need is a token. Okay. How you got it and not, I am not worried about that. In terms of this endpoint, I just need you to supply me a token and that's all. Okay. And I will check the validity and if the token authenticity and validity of the token, if it is okay, then I would respond. That is what the main idea of of this implementation, right? How can I do is, if you see, this is currently Postman is working as a front end to me, right? It's like from here I can do all the stuff that will be the front end will be doing, right? For a request, you can just go ahead and check it from the browser. Open up the inspect window, and whenever a request is made, see, I'm refreshing it, right? In network over here, you can have it look. So whenever a request is made, there are multiple parts. There is header, pre, what was the response, initiator, and multiple other things, cookies and stuff. Come to header. In header, you will see multiple more things. That is general, response, and requested. So it's like whenever a request is made, the request will be having a header. Okay. And that header can have multiple things over there. Same goes for response. What was the response back from the server? Okay. That is what we are doing over here, getting over. So this is from Postman. This is the request part, and this is the response part. Okay. That is a response part. Here can be a let's see. There is a header too, and here's the body. Same way over here, there is header. In here or from here, I want to pass the authentication token. How is that possible? Is I would just go to configuration, and in here I have to define something that is security uh, token authentication header. Yes, if I am not wrong, then that is it. Yes, that is all. That's correct. So if you are going ahead with the default, like if you want to go with the default one, then you can do something like you can see it says that the default is authentication token. So what I have to do is either you use this default wala thing, else you just add it to the configuration, whatever way. So what am I saying is, if I write authentication token over here and I want to add the token, how can I do it? Is firstly I need to get the token, login, this will generate me the token. So it's not running. Send. Uh, okay. Intro. Here's the token. I just copied it. Whatever there is, be it starting with a dot and whatever character it could be. Starting from the first double quote to the last double quote, you need to copy everything. Else it won't work. Okay. So just copy. Go back to the header. Paste it over here. And if I do what was that query, right? Query data. Right? Query data. And say get request. Previously it was saying what? If I see, if I uncheck it, so it won't be adding the token whenever a request is made. Right? It says 401, you must sign in to view the resource. If I add it with the request, if I add the token with the request, and if I send it, it's not added. Now it's added. I guess. Send it, okay, and draw. You can see it is saying message not found. Message was not found. Message data was not found. That is what? It is responding back to me, right? Previously, it wasn't. Like if I uncomment this and try, it says that 401. If I if I again send it, it is giving me like it's a pass through that I can get. Again, you can have it any way possible. For example, if I write my name over here and I just need to change the key, it would work again. Okay. So that is how you want to do. I prefer to keep it as authorization. What was this spelling? You need to authorization. You can opt for any, or you can go with the default one. That is all. Right. And now if I give it a try, it says yeah. So with this, the authentication part is done. The next part is we are a bit late. So I would request you 10-15 minutes more if that is, if we could extend it. Even at least for the basic part, we are done. Just that there is something more that I want to cover, and that would take me 10 more minutes. Else, security is done within the next 1 minute. Okay. So 10 more minutes to be extended. So as of now, authentication is there. Okay, that is being added to our backend server. Next thing is the RBAC implementation. That is also very easy. So I will import another decorator that goes with the name roles accepted. Okay. Okay. Before I proceed any further, I want to say one thing. Whatever library you are using, go through it. Like go through its documentation. I do not want you to go and read everything out. Rather, what you want to do is you just want to go through. Firstly, if I go to your home page, go through this. Whatever there is the list down. Okay. What are the stuff? What you get? Okay. It will give you an deeper idea of what libraries could do. Okay. And from there you can like think of like for example there's the code range configurations. You just go and check the index. Okay. What index, like what other things you have. So it will give you more idea, more newer thought to add to your app. Okay. That's an solution. Next thing, roles accepted. That is because there are two uh, type of decorators. One is role accepted and there is roles required. Okay. Go through the documentation. I won't say what's the difference and stuff, but the idea is same, kind of same. Okay. Basically, they both are implementing RBS. That is true, but there is a slight difference, and you have to go through the documentation to find it out. Now, to implement it, what I have to do is, for example, query data. In here, if I want to declare out what roles accepted, and I have to just give out the two role, like the names of the role that I am allowing. That is admin and user. In save data, for example, save data is only allowed for a admin. So in that case, it would be admin only. So query data will be can be accessed by anyone if that user is having a admin or a user role. But save data can only be accessed by a user who is having a admin role. Okay. Same goes for update, delete, and this one is again admin and admin. Okay. For example, and let's have a look. Query data. Query data is allowed for both the users, right? So I can give it a check again. Restart the server. Okay. See what was the user ID and like what was the email ID and password that was used. That is user two. So that specific user is having the regular user role. Okay. So right now it says no data was found. But if I try to do save, See, I would get a different error that I am not passing the data, okay, data points, but still it would work for me. See, save data, right? If I send it, you can see it says 403. You do not have a permission to view this resource. That is because I have allowed it only for the admin, right? If I change the token, you can see that it would work for you. And this is the token. I just copy it, go to paste it, and use it. So the previous token is for the normal user, general user, and this is the admin user, right? If I try to do save request, I would get a different error right now. Save data. And the post request, see, uh, null failed. That is because I haven't done the validation. So basically, it is passing through, right? I can go in there, and it is trying to add that, but it's not because of the data that I am not supplying. Save this, and you can see what would be the error. That is name is correct. So it is passing through. But if I change the token, it would say that 403 were not allowed. So with this, RPC implementation is done, and at least in terms of this, I am good to go at least for the basic security implementation for my app. Now that I was saying previously that if I need logout or not, see, I am not doing a thing so at least from the back. Okay. But in terms of basic implementation, I do not need a logout endpoint as of in terms of front end. I would be needing that because I can show it to you in the next day's class how the logout dollar stuff will work. But as of now, I do not need logout. Again, only for uh, basic implementation, the logout dollar. Next thing is the APIs. What about that is uh, see currently what I have said in the previous day, that is this is an correct implementation for your MATLAB project. Okay. That is the APIs. These are in a RESTful format. But there are some libraries, something like Flask RESTful, Flask RESTX, and some of the libraries that you can use to like, make the APIs. That is possible. Right. Again, this is totally valid. You can go with this. You can proceed with this. You can like use Blueprint to shift it to other files and stuff, like shift the endpoints to other files. But what am I saying? Just for the sake of completion, I will be showcasing that you are not at all required to use Flask RESTful, but if you want, you can use that. Okay. Else, this is fine. Okay. Stop. RESTful. There is one more thing that before I proceed for Flask RESTful, there is one thing that I really want to do, and I have forgot it here, the previous thing. That is, see, starting from line 7 till line 11, what are we doing? Firstly, we are initializing our Flask server, right? By adding the configurations. After that, we are including the SQL Alchemy instance and the Flask security instance within our services within our uh, Flask server, right? With this 4 line. So basic idea is that we are creating the Flask server, configuring it, adding some more functionalities into my app. That is it, right? So I want to do something like this. That is define create app and shift everything into this method. And in the return statement, I return init app. So what am I doing? I am initializing the Flask instance into a variable, using that variable to add the configurations, basically adding the configurations to the Flask instance. Next thing, I'm initializing the database, and finally adding the security, Flask security within our Flask server. Right? And finally returning that variable as in the app instance. Okay, so that is okay. And in here, what am I doing is app just to create app. This is possible, right? In in like if you go from a high level view, have I made any change? What do you say? Like if I restart it, still you'll say that there is no difference at all. It was how it was running, it's running same. So what is happening? Previously also there was an app variable that was having this, that is this Flask initialization and the configurations were added to it. The same thing is there still. What I just added it through a method like Python. Why do I need it? Like I do not need this format, but it's a good thing to keep. That is because there will be some errors that you may or may not face right now, but for sure you'll be facing that error in the last day. That is whenever you are going for backend jobs. Okay. And for that, I will be needing it in this format. So in DB init, there is something that I can do. See, what am I doing in line 2? That is basically I was importing the app instance, class server instance from the app file, right? Right now, I can do something like this. That is, instead of calling it directly, I can call something like this. I can create an app instance and use it with this. The basic idea is same. I will be creating an app instance like the Flash server instance, but it will be the same Flash server, right? Not a different one. So it will be considered within that. So DB init the fine. It's working the same it was. Chalo, ask if you want to ask anything. If it is clear, then I'm a good teacher, I guess. I'm a good. I'm good at conveying my idea. Not a teacher. I'm not a teacher. Okay, nothing to say. So, goodbye. If you find anything, any doubt, please ask me later on. Or else, it is. So the thing I was talking about, the Flask RESTful library. What am I saying for it is from the Flask RESTful library, I'll be importing API. That's the method, and I'll be adding it to my Flask server. Right? Adding it to variable, and I'm passing the Flask instance to it. But there is something more. That is, I need to return the API instance, and I have to get that over. Now there would be a problem in db init.py. That is, I cannot call it this way. Like I cannot call it into a single variable. But I am not using API over here. I won't be using API over here. So just for a pass through, you just add an underscore and it will return. Going back to app.py, I have initialized it, and if I restart my app, there is no problem. But what am I saying? I would sift all this into a, like, for example, I am just showcasing that yes, both are possible. That is, if I open up a folder, like what I want to do. So let me just showcase that showcase the endpoints with Flask's RESTful version, but let's not keep it in app.py, rather keep it in a different location. Okay. So Flask with the endpoints that are made with Flask stays in here. Okay, you can use Flask to like shift it out to different files and stuff or different location. But as of now, I'm considering or I'm keeping the Flask RESTful to be a different place and this one over here. So what am I saying? I can create a file, name it as routes.py, and add the APIs or endpoints or routes over here. But I'm not doing that. Rather, let me just do something like instead of doing routes, let me create a folder. Name it as routes. Okay. And this folder is having multiple files. For example, auth.py, test.py. So what it is doing? So the routes directory will be having all the endpoints within it, but separated out into proper files. So for example, auth.py, what will be there? I want to have the login and register endpoints or whatever endpoints that are responsible for the security while apart for my app will stay in there. Okay, that is possible, right? So copy this one and paste it over there. That is possible. Let me do the imports from the module for DB and user data store. And from Flask, import request, and it is okay. Now, the thing is that most of the errors are gone, but this decorator won't work, right? Because I am sending it to class. This full. But before I proceed for that, consider this scenario or consider this thing. For an endpoint, I say there are three parts. Okay. One is the endpoint declaration. Next is the method that I am allowing for that specific API. And after that, there's the Python method, which is having all the logics regarding that specific endpoint or the specific API. Three parts: the endpoint, the method, and the logic. Okay. Now, how to shift that? So in this file, I will be handling this method and this logic will stay over here. So what am I doing is a slight change. That is, this Python method will change. Okay, I won't be staying like this. Rather, what it will do, it will become as a class. Okay, class register. Let's change the name. Like there would be a name conflict because I am keeping both like register over here and over here too. So I'm keeping it as register resource. Okay. It's a class and it's similar in a similar idea how we were using the class to define the models. We will be using something more that is from the Flask RESTful library. I will be getting resource and it would act as a parent class resource. With this, I say somewhat we are done. Like the logics are okay, but there is something more. I said that two parts will be handled over here. That is the logic and the method. How will the method stay is, if you remember, if I had multiple methods over here, what was I doing? I was like adding it through ifs, right? Post and get. In here, it's something same. I am like if I want to declare it through like declare a method, what I have to do, I have to declare a Python method and name the method as per the HTTP method. Okay. So see, that's a Python method. And what have I named it? I named it as post. So it is a post method, post HTTP method that is allowed for uh, this specific method or logic will work within this post HTTP post. There is some the part that is left is the third one, that is to register, like that is to declare out an endpoint. But before that, let me do the same thing for logging too. So login class resource and post. Everything is shifted within that. Acha, within login, I forgot to do one thing, that is I want to add one more check. If not user, if not user dot active, then I will return that user is not active. That check I can do. So let's declare out the endpoints. How can I do it? Over here, whenever I was here are the endpoints, right? After I am done declaring the API, next thing you can import, like you can import it in other places, but it's visible. So from the routes directory, I would go to the auth.py file. From there, I would be importing register resource and login resource, like the classes. After that, I would use the API.add resource to declare an endpoint for a specific class. Now, there would be a conflict, right? That is slash register is coming through this and coming through this too. So what would I do? At least for one, I would be using a prefix, that is API. So localhost 5000 slash API slash login and localhost 5000 slash login, both are same. Both will work in the same idea, just that it is in a RESTful format. The same thing could be implemented for the other endpoints. I just okay. There is something more. It won't work. That is because of how RESTful would work, and that is I need to do a quick fix. That is Resonify and make response. In the return statements, previously I was just returning out a, like, what was I returning with the dictionary, and with the comma I was adding the HTTP status codes. But that would be not be possible if I am using Flask RESTful library. So for that, there are quick fixes. It's like that versus see what I have to do. Consider this return statement. So this is the dictionary object. So this dictionary object will stay within the JSONify method. Guys, can you tell me if I am audible? Thanks. So JSONify will be having the dictionary object, and after JSONify there would be a comma and the HTTP status code. Now everything will stay within make response. Okay, and with this it will work. Else without just make response and JSONify it won't work. So I have to add it for all the return statements. Let me give it a try. That is the return statement starts with a message. Right? And I will change it to this. Please. And ends with mostly it ends with a quote. Then there is a curly bracket and a comma. I want to end it with same way, but in this format. That is before comma, there is a curly bracket, there is a circular bracket. But there is something that is the status quo. So if there is a status quo that is 400, it would become 400 circular bracket. If there is 404, it will become 404 circular bracket. 403, 403. What other thing? That's 200. 201. So I hope everything is. If not, I can. It's not. Chalo, I can get it from problems. It's 35. 35. This was closed. 1060. This was closed. That's it. It was not added at all. So, so it's okay. And I restart. Fine. Let's give it a try. So log in. And if I am sending a post request, see, I got a response. Given the same response I'll be getting if I add auth before that. The token may or may not be same, but sorry, auth, not auth, API. The token may or may not be same, but the idea is right, same idea, same thing, same thing. So the only part that is left, that is, I have shown you everything, but to add decorators, authentication and anti-using this. Right? For that, what am I doing? I'm just quickly getting a method. For example, I'm changing this. Class, what do I need? It is plus from the source. I don't need anything else. There's a classes home, just source, and this becomes get. So there is one derives this. See, so it will return me this. And finally, let me have one more method that is a post. And post will what it will do is I want to have a path variable. Okay, the path variable will be returned in this format. That is hello, whatever name. So if I am doing a post request, in that case, I would need the path variable. If I am doing a get request, then I don't need anything. Only a response back would be good enough. But the thing that I want to do is from class security, I want auth and rows accepted so that I can protect the methods. Okay. Like now to protect it, there is one thing. It's not the same as I am protecting an endpoint, but over here you need to protect each and every method. Okay. So it's like auth required token and roles accepted at when any role is accepted. Okay. Let me give it a try. See, I would go back to app.py. In here somewhere from just need home resource, but here's a newer thing that is API dot add resource. I will pass the class and let it be the index endpoint. That is after the, as in the index endpoint, as in the address would be localhost 5000 slash API slash only slash. Okay. Else there can be something more. Is slash, and there will be a string. Okay. Now, how would you do? Let's restart it and let's give that a try. So API slash, and there's a get request. If I send it, you can see I'm getting hello world. If I change it to post, it requires an path variable. Here, the path variable is needed, an argument is needed. So that is over there. For example, meaning send, and it is returning me hello world. But here's the thing: I was passing the token. If I pass now, it would say 401. I'm doing a post request. It says 401. You need to sign in to view the results. Okay. But if I change it to get, it won't be it won't be setting that. That is okay. The results won't be there. And if I send it, you can see hello world is responding. So the get method is not protected, but the post method is protected for this endpoint. Okay. The endpoint is same, right? What if I am not doing a post request with a variable? For example, if I remove this and remove this too, mm, comment this down. And for example, this is hello. Yeah. Save. Now, what is happening? See, I can use a single endpoint now. Okay. If I'm doing a get request, that is fine. If I do a post request, it would send me that yes, you don't have like you need to sign in to view the post. Okay. The single API, single endpoint can have multiple actions. The same idea can be implemented for Flask 2. Flask 2. Just need to give it a check. That is possible. With this, I am done for today. I already extended the session quite a lot, like half an hour. I didn't expect the next 20 minutes, but yeah, it got extended. But with this, I can say that most of the part, most whatever basic part that is needed for backend, I have covered it. Will you upload it to Git? Yes, I will upload it to Git.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. I was not able to attend the on Friday's lecture.
Hmm.
And I tried accessing the recording, but I could not. Is there a special way to access the recordings?
No, I guess it was uploaded to the playlist. Okay, let me stop the recording,
Can
please.
you? Yeah. Matt.
Yeah, here's the playlist.
Okay, I'll have another. Thank you. Thank you.
There's
Yeah,
day
I'll have
one
a
and
look.
day two.
So this is in the chat, right? There's
Yeah,
a
it's in the
special
chat.
chat for this. Okay, boot camp. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Sir, successful is mandatory for us. I know you are saying something about that. I haven't listened at that time. Okay, Flash stressful is not at all mandatory. Again, I am repeating this in the recording. Please be aware that Flash stressful is not mandatory. Stop the recording over there.